Good Wednesday to you, everybody in COM 831. Welcome to week 3. How you doing? Everybody staying warm this wintry storm week? I suppose for a lot of the South and the East, if you live other parts of the country, you're like, what storm? What? Here in the Midwest, cold, very cold. Let's finish up the last of the coffee. What do we have here for a coffee cup? Oh, Griffin. Ode to my Welsh ancestors from a century or so ago. Okay. Let's take a look at what we're gonna do this week, and then we'll look at the questions from last week, see what sort of insight we can bring. We're gonna finish up Hoke Bear et al. Book, Everything Connects. So you'll read through chapter 8 and then the epilogue. All right, keep working on part 1 of your paper, due February 16th. I feel a sneeze coming on, so excuse me. Some of you have been emailing me about topics. Now, remember, if you want to do human subject research, you must have Institutional Review Board, that is IRB approval. And to get IRB approval, you have to have gone through the CIT city training processes, and this trains you in the fundamentals of research ethics and then some of the law. You get a city certificate, then you contact me, and we set up what's called a CAYUSE or a CUSE, CAYUSE account with Regent University, and then you upload your proposed methodology to that account, and there's an internal review board at Regent that looks through it and goes, yeah, okay, no one will be harmed in the course of this research. No children will be locked in a box somewhere, So, but that process takes a while. So if you are adopting a human subject research oriented approach, and this is, if you're going to even do just a survey, even with people that doesn't matter if you know them or not, you have to have IRB approval. So if that's something that you want to do, and I encourage that you do that as a researcher, be sure to get in touch with me. Now, some of you have already, and we have set up, we've set the process rolling. I don't think they've quite responded yet on the CAYUSE accounts to get those set up. So just remember that by way of your methodology, okay? Because part 1, you have to be very clear about your methodology. Now, you don't have to use human subject research, which could be qualitative or quantitative, as a methodology. You could adopt a qualitative or quantitative methodology in which you look at artifacts, you look at documents, and then you can analyze them using quantitative statistical tests, qualitative statistical tests, or reporting on sort of the general consensus within these documents, in which you're not doing a statistical analysis, a content analysis, say if it's qualitative, or assigning numerical values to certain things if it's quantitative. You don't have to do that. There's a lot of different methodologies you can go about, but you do have to state your methodology clearly. And as such, you have to understand what's the difference between quantitative and qualitative. So if you're not sure, look it up, okay? Do a little bit of reading. And if you're still not sure, then come and ask me. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. Now, for discussion questions, I've been reminding myself, a little string tied around my finger, to modify the requirement, okay? So I'm allowing you to respond to 3 posts. Excuse me, not 3 people. One of the downsides to me in this winter, being spent a lot of time indoors, is I'm very allergic to dust. And almost on cue. And most people do not know, most of dust is human skin. And upon that human skin feeds small organisms, we call them mites, actually little crustaceans. They're teeny weeny little rascals, and they excrete waste products, feces, and there within is a protein that some of us are allergic to. So if you find yourself stuck indoors more because of the weather, and you find your allergies bothering you, it may be, now unless you have a pet, you're allergic to pets in there too. Again, it's a protein in the saliva of the animal that bothers you. Unless you have a pet and you're stuck indoors and you have allergies, it may be dust mites. Okay. But anyway, I have been reminding myself to allow responses to 3 posts. This can be from same peoples. I prefer it was more than one. Okay. Because look, come on, classmates, be kind to your classmates. Read the material, answer the questions, and post your responses before 10 o'clock on Monday night, because people don't want to wait. Try to get, I post them on Tuesday. Try to get these suckers up by Thursday, Friday. Okay. But if you're, you find yourself sort of stuck in the situation in which there's not 3 people to respond to, I will allow that. Now, typically what I do is I grade posts in batches of 4 weeks. So after next week, then I'll start giving you a grade. I mean, to let you know, I read everything that you post. I go through the posts, typically before I make these videos, and I read what you have to say. I stay out of the way because the point of the exercise, of the discussion exercise, is to help you develop discussion. I may only jump in the instance in which there's something really inappropriate, and that's extremely rare. Or if somebody is way off base in their answer, and that's something that I'll email them privately. You're not going to see that pop up in the discussion forum, but know that I'm in there and I'm reading what you're doing. And my starting point for grades is I will give you the full points if you engage in informative and in inquisitive discussion. I'm not looking whether you get the answer right or wrong, and I talk about that in the video. That's the point of the video. What I'm looking for is, do you engage the text? And so by contrast, answers, and it usually comes in the form of responses of, oh yeah, great point, or it's really interesting, something that you might get from a Walmart greeter. Hey, thanks for coming. No, I'm not going to give you points for that. And or AI. You're using AI to write your responses. I'm gonna sniff you out eventually, and you're gonna get a 0 for that. Don't do that. Look, let's just hear the gears turning in your head, okay? Because this is training for you as a thinker, as a researcher, as a writer, as a communication expert, not a click, chat bot, Claude, Chat GPT, whatever, Gronk expert, a communication expert. Okay. So after next week, I'll start giving out grades, and you'll see in terms of because some of you asked, well, what are you looking for in discussion section? Just answer the questions and engage with each other. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, let's take a look at last week, see what you said. Week 2, question 1. Provide a published illustration, print or online media, demonstrating structure of innovation, performing innovation or organizational growth according to the principles discussed in chapters 5 through 7 of Everything Connects. Now, what are we looking for here by way of, what might appear on an exam? I'm looking to see if you have familiarity with the principles that are discussed in those 3 chapters. So if a question appeared on the exam, related to this post, it would be, do you know what the principles are and do you understand them? Okay. I'm not going to have an exam question that says, post a piece of online media. Okay. You're not going to be allowed to navigate outside of the exam module while you take the exam. Okay. All right, Kai, let's take a look at you. The organization I chose is Awaken the Dawn movement. I attended a Communication America event last year, National Mall, founded by Pastor David Bradshaw. This movement exemplifies decentralized, purpose-driven organizational model that aligns with the principles discussed in chapters 5 through 7. Everything connects. Bradshaw established a network of independent prayer communities across the country, each functioning as a short-term cluster focused on prayer, worship, spiritual revival. Visual illustrations effectively capture organization structure, depicts decentralized grassroots movement, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, good response, Kai. Now, in your either response or your studying of this, I encourage that you actually, write these principles out and spend some time becoming familiar with them, and then you'll be able to recall them and say, oh, okay, yeah, I know what that one is. Because if you're given them as a list, or you say which one of these is not one of the principles, you go, oh, I recognize that. Okay, good answer, Kai. Question number 2. What are the 2 layers of progress? Share and I should say, what are the 2 layers of progress according to Hoke? Because this doesn't mean like these are the layers of progress. Okay, share an experience or observation where you have observed these layers of progress at work. Let's see, Mia. Reading about the farmer and the physician offer new perspective on the roles certain professionals and leaders play in shaping progress through growth and curation. He illustrates, and you mean Hoke, that farmers must strategically plant and cultivate seeds to influence their growth, but they can't make them grow. Leaders and organizations can't make their subordinates act. They can only influence them to do so by fostering a transformative environment. In the same instance, physicians curate healthcare by assessing histories and current challenges to prescribe solutions, but it's up to the patient to implement it. Okay, that's good. But again, try to get right to the question. What are the 2 layers of progress? Okay, Alicia, the 2 layers of progress are curation, caretaking, and cultivation, growth. Boom, right there. Okay, excellent. Mia, your answer is not a bad one. Try to think succinctly. All right. In some sectors, and I've seen this, the level of patience expressed by individuals that run companies and organizations can their level of attention and toleration is really low. And I have been in, it's never happened to me in a pitch, thank the Lord, but I have been in either on the team that was getting the pitch from a company that wanted a contract, or they were pitching services, or they had a particular product, or I was there as an observer, part of a process in which we were helping mentor the organizations pitching this. And I have seen people watching pitches that don't get to the point, and within like 90 seconds. I mean, I'm thinking of one instance I was really shocked, and I could see them on Zoom, and they were sort of like, and then just boom. Yeah, that's really interesting. What I think we need is we need to back up and group and think about this a bit. So thank you very much. And bloop. All right. Cultivate succinctness in what you do. Good job. Question number 3. Among the 4 caricatures of roles discussed in Chapter 6, which role have you most recently performed in one of the organizations you're a part of? Okay, now here again, the essence of the question is for you to identify and be able to discuss these roles. All right. So Alicia, you nailed this. Carolyn, you've got this enumerated as well. 4 caricatures Hoke and Baer discuss are ideation roles, that is someone that dreams things up, discovers, invents, spreads ideas. Guiding roles, building roles, improving roles. Okay, and these tend to be, now this is painting with sort of a large brush, but these tend to be by way of categories where people and things, where behaviors, I should say, not just things, fall within an organization. And I think the best career advice that I ever saw came out of a commercial. I don't know if you remember that the beer company Dos Equis for a long time ran a character, a persona, to sell their beer. and they call him the most interesting man in the world. And one of the shorts was career advice. And maybe if I can dig the video up, I'll link it in the announcement. But it has this guy sitting at the table and he's playing with butterflies or something. It's really absurd. But he says, it says most interesting man in the world on career advice, and the career advice was in life, find what it is that you don't do well, and don't do that thing. That was the career advice. So figure out which roles you do and do not fit well in, and now you might want to aspire to a different one than the space you currently occupy. That's fine. If you have a talent for it, it's always good to aim up, but then figure out which of those four, these are sort of meta categories, and get get in there and crank it. Okay, Carolyn, good answer. Question number 4: what are some of the structures of innovation that Hoke and Bear discuss in chapter 5? And here we get to sort of the nub of the book. Let's see, who have we not gone to? Trinity, let's take a look at you. Some of the key structures of innovation Hoke and Bear describe it's plural. Some of the structures of innovation have less to do with creativity and more to do with what an organization reinforces every day. One structure I noticed is how hiring decisions get made. Caught my eye a bit since one of my communication liaisons department is HR. Okay, another major structure is how communication flow inside the organization. Okay, good. So now what this question is sort of asking you is to be able to identify them first and foremost. So try to, put that front and center in your answer. Okay. Alicia, did we go to you before? Well, let's just go back to you again. Some of the structures of innovation Hoke and Bear discussed in chapter 5 include diversity is a predictor of innovation. Companies are destined to produce products that mirror their organization structures. And there comes a time when focusing on organizing on values or agility becomes the only game in town. Okay, good. Right up front. All right. So by way of, what I want you to draw from the text is, so first of all, know what it is that the author said. Now, by the way, because an author says something doesn't make it so. You just need to be familiar with some of the major players in the space that you work in. Okay. So know what the author said, and then be able to discuss, well, what's the point? What does it mean? Well, why do you need a structure of innovation? All right. Doesn't innovation just happen? You're like, no, it does not. And you may find that in strategic communication, you are either taking the lead and explaining this to the company, or, and depending on the size of the place you work, actually helping to shape the manifestations of these structures. Or maybe, of companies that are in trouble that lack them. You go, the reason you guys are stagnating is because Okay. So, these guys aren't the do all and end all, but at least know what they have to say. All right. Short video for today. Remember to move along in part 1 of the paper. The heavy lifting for this part is understanding your methodology, because I'm going to be looking at that very carefully. If you tell me, my methodology is, and then you don't explain it, that is going to be something that I look for. If you tell me my methodology is, and then the sort of data that you tell me you're going to be dragging up can't be treated in the way that you have picked a methodology for, I'm going to be focused on that. So think about your methodology and select one. And if you're not sure, which is which, look it up. If you're still not sure, then give me a call. And then carefully select the sources for your annotated bibliography. Make these the ones that you would use, not just ones, oh, there's one, read through it. And remember what I said in the instructional sheet, okay? The place to start with a resource for your work is the abstract. A good abstract will tell you a lot about whether the article in question is of any use to you. I look immediately at the abstract, and if the abstract is not well written, it's not always apples to apples, not always, or I should say A to B, wrong analogy. It's not always that this is going to lead to that, but it's generally a giveaway that what comes next, that is the article, is poorly organized and presented. And I don't have time for authors and thinkers that don't organize and present well. All right, so carefully choose those articles for your annotated bibliography and make sure that you covered in your discussion of them the essential elements that I enumerate in that instructional sheet, because this makes it of use to you. Okay. All right, everybody. Have a good week. Stay warm. I think about you. I do pray about you. If you need anything, catch me during my office hours. Otherwise, I will see you on Canvas. God bless. Goodbye.